I'm so excited to have here with me Dougall Fraser. Dougall Fraser is an internationally recognized psychic, author, and cosmic coach. He utilizes color therapy, clairvoyance, intuition, and practical advice to help people assess and attain their goals and dreams. Dougall has been featured on shows such as Dr. Phil, The Real Housewives of Orange County, Dancing with the Stars, and Good Day L.A. He's a regular featured blogger for the Huffington Post and was a speaker at a live event series hosted by the Oprah Winfrey Network. Dougall's book, Your Life in Color, is available by Hay House. Dougall, welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Thank you, thank you. That was a very fancy intro. You've made me sound a lot fancier than what is real.
Dougall, I'm particularly excited about this interview because I am obsessed with colors. And I live in a country, Cyprus, that they all dress up in blacks, whites, earth tones, and sometimes blue just break like the stereotype. And I'm all about the rainbow. So I recognize the power of color to transform our lives and create real, palpable changes in our lives. So I'm curious to know, what was your journey of starting with color? What introduced you to color therapy? And how did you come about to teach and write about colors?
So my parents used to say that by the time I was standing in the crib, that I would talk about seeing colors around people and hearing voices. And my mother loved that and was like calling her channel and like buying me crystals. And my dad was like, he is a crazy whack job, and immediately sent me to therapy. So I had a very like divided approach to it. My dad wanted to make sure that it wasn't a medical problem, but my mom was like, this is the most exciting thing in the world. At first, I just sort of thought it was, you know, I thought I was the only person that could do this. And when I was 8 years old, I had my first psychic reading at a place in New York called Lilydale. It's this spiritual community in upstate New York. And I remember the psychic telling me that my aura was red and what it meant. And I was like obsessed with that. I thought it was so cool. And then more importantly, what was so awesome about her was she talked about how I could work with color and energy. At the time, it was about my emotions. I had a lot of anger as a kid, and how I could utilize that color to help me break through my anger. And from that point forward, I was like obsessed and just wanted to absorb as much information as possible.
And then eventually you just started embracing the whole thing. And I read in your book, you started seeing colors around people. Is it right?
I've always seen that. And the funny part is, I actually have to hear your voice. It's the sound of someone's voice that helps me see energy. So when you talk, like I immediately see purple and blue. It's floating in my mind's eye. I see it around you. If someone changes the topic of a conversation, the color will start to change. It's just my way of sort of understanding someone's vibration.
That makes so much sense, Dougall, because right before this chat, I was meditating, and I'm like, what color do I infuse this chat? And I instantly visualized royal blue around my aura, and you just picked that out.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing, and again, I have to hear someone's voice to do it. And so to go into the metaphysical perspective, when we speak, you actually hear vibration, and that vibration and that sound, sometimes it gives people goosebumps, sometimes you see color, sometimes you feel connected to someone. What I'm really tuning into is the vibration of the soul.
Wow, makes so much sense, because we have all these different clairs, clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance. So by hearing the voice, it just gives you the connection to a color, which is how you perceive it. So I'm curious about colors in the sense that we have so many different spiritual tools and modalities in this spiritual community. Why work with colors? What is it about the colors that it's just so different and special and therefore useful to us?
To me, it's tangible. So it's not just about the auric field, but the color that we choose for our shirts and our clothes, the way that we decorate our home. It's this really cool way to ground your energy into the third dimension. Like, if you and I sit here right now and we talk about the fourth chakra, my brain can conjure up as many images as it can. I can try to feel it, I can try to understand it, but it's still a little outside of my physical world. If I talk about blue being the color of truth and helping you express your authentic being, and then I wear a blue sweater, or I go buy a blue pillow for my couch in my office to remind myself of the intention, it becomes a physical thing in our life that we can utilize, and I love that.
Ooh, I love the sound of that, because sometimes in the spiritual community, we're talking about dimensions and galactic beings all the time, but when you put something tangible to it, we can really connect with it. And what I loved about reading your book is I read it last year and I came back to it this year, and I'm like rediscovering so much more every time I go back to it. Thanks. We use color to communicate with our guides. Could you guide us through how can we begin doing that? Because we usually talk about feathers when it comes to angels, or just a feeling that we see, or just hearing something or thinking we heard something. How can we use colors in a more tangible way to communicate and deepen our relationship with our spirit guides?
Yeah, so as you guys know, what we all believe in is that the universe is always trying to get our attention. So that's the moment where a song will repeat itself. You know, you go to a restaurant, you hear the song, you get in a car, you hear the song, there's a message behind it. You keep seeing the same repetitive numbers over and over again. There are so many different ways that the universe tries to get our attention. With color energy, when you activate a color, what that means is you've selected a color that you want to work with, the universe will start to repeat it in your life. Like when I moved from from New York to Los Angeles, orange was everywhere. I didn't even realize it. I was buying pumpkins and orange candles and orange throw pillows. And my husband was like, enough with the orange right now. But it was everywhere in my life. Orange is all about balance. We had moved from this like 30-floor building to a house with a yard. We had a car. I didn't know what was going on with my life. So the universe kept trying to show me orange to say, you can find your balance. You can find your harmony. So we'll go through patterns of color. Then I went through blue for a really big phase. I'm sort of in a purple phase right now. And I think it's the universe's way of saying, I see you, and this is the lesson behind that vibration.
So speaking of colors and how they come into our lives, I want to go back to the basics of our aura. Yeah. So we assume that our aura has a color, but I want to ask you this question. Does everybody's aura have a color? And does this change? And what are the factors that change our aura's color?
So there's one color that every single human being on the planet has. And when I teach people how to see energy, this is sort of the first layer that we're looking for. And it's a little bit of a hard color to describe. And everybody listening right now, if you've ever seen an aura, you've probably seen this before. It's kind of like an outline or a glow around the head. Some people describe it as like a soft yellow, maybe a little bit of white. What I love is you see it a lot in Italian Renaissance paintings. They'll sort of paint the halo. So that's the soul. That's literally, right, yeah. That's the soul. That gives me chills when I talk about it. But that's the soul. That's your energy. That's how you know that you're alive. From that point, the energy will expand. You'll see different colors, flashes of color. The hard part with auras, or not the hard part, the interesting part with auras is in numerology, if I crunch my numbers, I'm a 6th life path that does not change. Your auric field is always changing, depending on the people that you're around, your thought, your feeling in the moment. So people really want to believe like, oh, I'm blue, I'm always going to be blue. That's not really how it works. You might be a different color around your parents, a different color in the work field. And this is what I love about the auric body, is that you can change it and transform your energy according to whatever you need in the moment.
I love that. So in that sense, we can surround ourselves with the colors we want to infuse that have the qualities we want to infuse our life with. Is that it?
Absolutely.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, like for example, one of the colors that I always see around people that are really good communicators or musicians and performers is like this deep, lovely green. I'm a naturally shy person. Anytime I have to do a public talk, I'm a nervous wreck about it. So I would see that green around other people that were so comfortable in that space. And I would start working with that color to teach myself how to give a presentation, how to access that part of my being, because technically speaking, it's not my strong point.
I find this so fascinating, and I want to delve deeper into the practical ways we can use colors to create change in our lives. So in your book, you talk about different activations that we have. Could you run us through the these different activations and some practical ways we can start working with the colors that we need more in our lives.
Yeah, so the spiritual activation is always the first place that we want to start. What that means is you're picking one color, you're intending to focus on one energy. So let's go with green because we just talked about that. The first thing we want to do is you visualize a ball of green light above your head. And the reason for that is I want to get you out of your body. You know, we all have, you know, pains, or we're aware of what we're wearing, or we're so aware of our physical body that the moment that we close our eyes and say, I'm going to focus just above my head and I'm going to visualize a ball of green light, you've immediately gone into an energetic space. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to ground that energy into your body because you want to have a real experience on the planet. So we have the energy explode, we ground it from the top of our heads all the way down to our toes because we want to integrate it into our body to have a spiritual experience on the planet. This is the most important thing. I do it every day, sometimes multiple times a day, to invite that vibration into our life.
Wow, powerful. And I also loved when you talked about props, color props.
Yeah, color props.
That we can use into our room. How do we do that?
So this is because when I'm in my office and there's a candle lit behind me and there's soft music and I do a spiritual activation of color, I'm like so connected to my soul, it's so clear. Within an hour, if I go to the grocery store and someone cuts me off, it's not like I'm like, oh, what a blessing. I get frustrated. I completely forget about my spirituality, and I have to be sort of shocked back into the energy. So a color prop is a physical item that you have in your house. It can be flowers that are of the same color. It could be a stone, a candle, a blanket, a sweater, whatever you want. So that in the middle of the day, you know, if you're a mom of 3 and the kids are screaming in the background and you feel overwhelmed, but you see those red flowers that you brought as your color prop, it reminds you of your spiritual connection. It becomes this spiritual activation. Or you had talked about me being on the Dr. Phil show, which was a very intense experience. When this book came out, my first national talk show, when you go on TV as an intuitive, you get a lot of feedback, and some of it isn't always positive. So that morning, I meditated with pink. That was my spiritual activation. But in the middle of a TV set, I can't say, hey guys, can we stop right now? Because I need to meditate with pink. I don't have that. But what I did was I wore a pink jacket so that in the middle of the interview, if I was feeling insecure and I looked at all of the monitors, I would see that pink jacket as a reminder that I was surrounding myself with unconditional love. And I didn't have to worry what anybody else thought about me because that was my intention, to love myself. So that jacket becomes a color prop and a moment of spiritual activation without anybody even knowing what I'm doing.
So it's like a touch point to connect us to the vibration of that specific colors, which brings me to crystals.
Yeah.
So crystals, which we all love. I chose to work with this light blue celestite for this interview. I don't know why, but it felt right. So I'm curious to know about your perspective between color associations and crystals. Is there one?
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of crystals definitions, some of them are similar to my definitions of color. Some of them are a little bit different. My thing with crystals is whatever you infuse your intention with is what manifests from that. So I really love to use it as a grounding tool for myself. They're beautiful. My body can hold it and understand it. So I use them a lot as a way to infuse my color therapy with the color prop.
Makes perfect sense. Now, Dougall, my favorite color is red. I am obsessed with the color red. I remember in London when in my room I had red bed sheets and red duvet, and almost 50% of my clothes are red. I have to wear red every single day. Like I have this one right now, and I almost have this one as well. So I'm curious.
So this has been your whole life?
This has been not my whole life. No, it has been in the past 10 years.
Okay, so 10 years. Usually if someone's in a red phase, one of the first questions I ask them is if they're trying to manifest a relationship. So are you in a
Hashtag story of my life.
Okay. So people who are drawn to red love relationships in general. Red is all about the emotional exchange with other people. You identify as a healer, you identify as someone who leads with their heart. So when we're drawn to red, it's like we want to be surrounded by people that make us feel nourished and connected in that emotional connection. it's not just necessarily a romantic relationship, although in your case, I think it might be leading in that direction, but it's also making sure that we're attracting soulful relationships. People who are drawn to red, anybody listening, when you're in a soulful relationship, friendship, business work, romantic relationship, you feel at your best. So that's probably why you're drawn to that color.
You basically just read me like a sentence right now. So thanks for that. Which brings me to the question about our favorite colors and what they signify for us. So I'm sure everybody here has a favorite color. And people listening live right now, let us know in the comments right now quickly, what's your favorite color? And Dougall, what do they signify for us?
So it's funny because Tanya just said, what about black? Which is one of the biggest questions that I get, is that one of the jokes people will say is like, oh, you must see like black or gray in my aura, as if that's a bad thing. It's so not a bad thing at all. Guys, earth tones are some of the most powerful things in the world. They ground us. They keep us rooted. They help us manifest things. Oddly enough, it's a really, really grounding, practical color. If I'm overwhelmed, if I speak at a big event, you'll see me mostly wearing gray or brown because I want to pull my energy in. Favorite colors are the vibrations that come naturally to people. Think of it like a sugar or like a sweet, like it's what we crave. I'm actually more curious about the colors that people don't like, because the color that you don't like will really teach us about your shadow side. What are you working on? What are your blockages? So a lot of times in a session, a color that I'll see around someone, they'll be like, oh, I don't like that color at all. But that's going to teach you so much. If we embrace a color that you have an aversion to, you will have a big revelation guaranteed.
Okay, yes, that was my second question regarding the shadow colors. But before we go deeper into that, I want to do something practical with people. So people just posted their colors right now. Could you just give us some keywords relating to color? So let's go through orange.
Orange is the color of balance. Orange people are natural counselors. If you're drawn to that, you're looking for the combination of psychology and spirituality. You're not happy in one world, you like both. So when we invite orange into our life, we're trying to make sure that we have balanced energy.
Yellow.
Yellow light, I typically see yellow around people who are double majors in university or excel at two things. I call it the color of higher intellect. This person loves to absorb information. They want to study. They might be thinking of going back to school if you've been drawn to yellow. But yellow is like this gentle reminder that there's something that you're passionate about and you should study more about it and then share it with the world.
Wow, I love yellow. How about blue?
So blue is, again, it's about truth. So I'll see blue around someone who's super, super candid. They, you know, if you're around a blue person and you say, do you like this shirt? They're going to give you an honest answer. So sometimes people who love blue can be perceived as like a little bit spicy, but I love it. I would so much rather someone be direct and give me information rather than just be polite about something.
Yeah, thank you. And how about purple?
So purple is considered the color of leadership. So I'll see purple around heads of state, someone that's in a political position. What I love and what's so interesting about purple is that historically it was always reserved for like kings and queens and people that were in a position of power. When we're drawn to purple, what the universe is asking you to do is to step up to the plate. You deserve to be perceived as an expert. You deserve to be in alignment with your destiny, and it helps you call upon the leadership qualities within your being.
Wow. Now, we talked about red and green, so I'm not going to ask you that. But I'm very curious about black that someone just asked right before, because I've caught myself many times to tell people, oh, black is the absence of color. So I tend to have like a really, not a positive relationship with black, which I guess brings me to the shadow question. But how do you define black?
So black represents the earth. You know, it's connected to the goddess. It's the void. It's neutral space. It's going within. You know, we start our life in darkness. We will end our life in darkness. It teaches us just to perceive energy. Culturally, if you look to indigenous tribes, they have always looked at earth tones as being incredibly powerful. Now, what I tell people is I normally get questions about purple and pink and the bright, sparkly colors, and those are lovely, and they're very seductive in a way. Earth tones teach us so much about the world. And what's interesting right now is the planet really needs our attention. And so there's this stigma with darker colors, like it's something bad or it's you know, connected to something evil. And I don't see that at all. I see it as powerful and holy and holding space. So when we look to black, we think of being rooted. And how do I say this politely? There are a lot of people in the New Age world who sometimes are perceived as a little airy-fairy and a little out there, and, you know, space cadet syndrome. And so when we work with earth tones, we ground into the planet so that we deliver our information, so that people can see us, so that we feel present. They're incredibly powerful colors.
So if black is a very grounding color, is white a very heavenly?
Very much so. So white encompasses, so white, for everybody listening, next week you're gonna be like, what was that color guy? Am I supposed to work with purple, green? I can't remember. Whenever in doubt, work with white. And that's because scientifically it encompasses all color. I call it like the all-purpose cleaner. Like we all have that one product in our house that can clean the windows, and you know, you can clean the bathroom with it. It does everything. That's white. It does everything. So white is just the color of spirituality and clarity. Think of it as when you're walking into a room of your consciousness, the first thing that we do is we turn the light on to take a look at what's going on. And that's what white provides for us. What's interesting though, George, is when I lived in New York City, I only wore earth tones. And when I travel to big cities, I'm drawn to earth tones more. And that's because space is limited. You know, if I'm on the subway with hundreds of people around me, I don't want my energy to be expansive. I want to pull it in. I want to feel grounded. When I have a lot of space, then I want my energy to open up. So black, brown, and gray can be a really great way to like pull your energy in so that you're not, especially if you're an empath, you're not feeling like you're picking up on everything. Or notice, I know I'm rambling, but I've had coffee, but notice creative people like designers, incredible designers will only wear black. And I think that's because they're so connected to color. It's like, I can't even think about it right now. So for them, neutral, grounding, done.
Oh God, I had this conversation with my architect friend, and he was telling me the same thing. Like, he's creative all the time. He just needs a blank canvas. That's how he defined it. Makes perfect sense. So in this way, we can use colors for psychic protection. Is that it? So we use something more grounded to just shield our aura and go within, and then we use something more exuberant to just connect and get out there with people. So I'm curious about the more obscure colors. So in the book, you talked about like gold and red and emerald green and ruby red and all those. But what about teal or turquoise or maroon? How do we begin to work or garner information about these kind of more obscure colors or combinations of colors?
Well, first of all, what I encourage everybody to do is if you're feeling drawn to a particular color, meditate with it for a while, surround yourself with it, ask yourself how you feel. All of my definitions of colors are a combination of things that I've read and studied and understood in my own personal experience. So energy is so unique and personal. Turquoise, one of my favorites, very profound, is the color of forgiveness. When we think of turquoise, the universe is asking you to really raise your vibration and think of something in your life that's been particularly challenging and really take the higher road. It gives us this bird's eye perspective. Like I'm a sexual abuse survivor, and one of the things that I really came to with healing was through turquoise, was to try to remove myself from it and figure out for me what the lesson was, what I could learn from such a painful experience, and then ultimately forgive the people that were connected to it, which is a really higher consciousness thing you have to do. It'd be very easy for me to be angry and hold resentment and carry that my entire life. But turquoise teaches us how to transmute that energy from a really divine perspective and forgive and to let it go because it's no longer serving our highest good. It's a particularly powerful color for people.
Speaking of like more obscure colors or color combinations, how about color intensities? Because I'm just thinking about myself and my brand. I use pastel colors mostly, of specific colors. And I'm not necessarily drawn to the intense color red versus a pastel color red. Could the intensity
but that's changing for you. That's changing for you, George. You're polite, you're kind, everybody knows that about your heart, but you're also working on giving yourself permission to shine. And so the softer pastel colors, like they come into a room and they're sweet and they connect, but it's not gonna like grab a ton of attention. if you're trying to manifest something big, you're going to want to go to bigger, brighter colors. You're going to want people to see you. You're going to need to give yourself permission to like allow that to happen, which you're doing already. But the bigger, brighter colors, that captivates attention. So the softer colors, it's literal, it's soft, it's lovely, it's peaceful. But if you're trying to manifest things, we want to turn the volume up quite literally on the color.
Wow, these just blew my mind. Makes perfect sense. So using softer color to introduce a certain quality into our lives and into the world, and then use brighter, more intense colors of that same spectrum to just amp that up, basically.
So if I go to the airport, right, and it's not that I want to be invisible, but I don't want to attract a ton of attention, I'm sort of in a neutral space, I'm going to visualize a softer color for myself. If I'm about to get up in front of several hundred people and give a presentation, that purple's got to be on point, and it has got to be shining, and it's got to be really bright, and I have to access a different part of my personality. So it's quite literal. The softer the energy, the softer the, what you're attracting to you. The bigger, the brighter the energy, the bigger, the brighter the opportunity you're attracting to you.
Ah, makes perfect sense. I love that. So with regards to the shadow side of colors, I find that so interesting because I haven't read this in many books. So you talk about, you give keywords about the qualities of a color, and then the shadow side of a color, meaning the colors we are repelled to, or the colors we don't like much. What do they have to say about us? Could you give us some, I know you talked about this a little bit, but could you give us some practical ways we can begin to work with colors we don't like?
So one of my experiences, both getting readings and giving readings, was, especially getting readings, I would go to intuitives and they would tell things about me that were true, that I thought about. They would really focus on my strengths. And this is what's going to happen in your life. And it was accurate. Like I had thought of those things, but then 3 months would go and 6 months would go and nothing necessarily manifested. Then there would be a few intuitive readers that would give me compliments, these are your strengths, but they'd also talk a little bit about my weaknesses and my blockages that were holding me back from manifesting the things that I was looking for. The shadow side of color is so important. It feels great to be told with, let's say, ruby red and deep red, that you're emotional, that you're a healer, that you connect with people. That feels really good. But the shadow side of it is being overly sensitive. And so people who are drawn to reds, as much as their heart is delightful, it's also sometimes holding them back from opportunity because they can be too sensitive. So they need to manage it a little bit. Each color has a lesson. It tells us about our strength, but it also tells us about our weaknesses. And I believe to be successful in life on all levels, we have to examine the shadow side and our blocks in order to move forward and be our most authentic self.
And in that sense, of course, I'm always thinking about my own experience while you're talking about red right now. So red being my favorite color, for example, or somebody else's, it could be like any other color. Could we have a relationship with both? Could we work with both the shadow side of a color, but at the same time be one of our favorite colors and benefit from the positive qualities of it? Because thinking about myself, I enjoy red and I benefit from the positive qualities of red, but sometimes I may allow too much of a red energy in my life, which would make me be oversensitive.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's not only work. Sorry, yeah.
You have to explore both. What I've noticed, myself included, is that we tend to get distracted by the easier part, the fun part of it. The shadow side is where the wisdom is. So whatever color you're drawn to, there's a positive side as well, but we want to examine the other side in the same way.
I love this. This has been so enlightening, Dougall. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure diving into color. This was so much information that you've just given us in only 30 minutes, and I can see people are saying this all resonates with me right now. You inspired me to get yellow. I need to get your book. You're amazing. I love this. Thank you so much for joining me. I wish you the most beautiful rest of your day. And thank you to everybody who joined us live today. This episode will be available as a replay here on Instagram for 24 hours, but also on YouTube. If you search for George Lizos, Dougall Fraser, you'll find it there. It's going to be there permanently, as well as the Lit Up Lightworker podcast, which is available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Thank you so much, Dougall, and wishing you the most beautiful rest of your day.
Thanks, George. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.